Yes, hello. Welcome back to the Rugby League Forecast podcast. You can find this podcast on Spotify. You can also find it on YouTube, and this podcast will very soon, within the next week, be up on Apple Podcasts as well. Let's go through the team lists. This is episode 2 of the week, where we go through the team lists for the upcoming round. This is round 6 of the 2026 season, and it kicks off this Thursday night at Accor Stadium at 7:50 p.m. in Sydney between the Bulldogs and the Penrith Panthers. Let's go through the lineups. At fullback, Connor Tracy; 2, Jacob Carraz; 3, Anari Tuala; and 4, Bronson Sherry coming back into the side, replacing Stephen Crichton. On the wing, Marcelo Montoya; the halves, Matt Burton and Lachlan Galvin; up front, Max King; Bailey Hayward at dummy half, and 10, Sam Hughes; Viliami Kikau; Jacob Preston and Jamin Salmon in the scrum. On the bench, Kurt Mance, Tilly Tupanua; Harry Hayes; Sean O'Sullivan once again in that 17 jersey; Jake Turpin and Lipoi Hopoi in the 20. The reserves are Akalosi Jones, Logan Spinks in the 22, and of course Jethro Renakama has been on that reserves bench list now over the last few weeks. For the Penrith Panthers, they are undefeated going into round 6. Unbelievable start to their season. Dylan Edwards at fullback, Thomas Jenkins and Brian To'o on the wings, Paul Alamotti and Casey McLean in the centres, the halves Blaze Talangi and Nathan Cleary. Up front, Moses Leota, Mitch Kenny at dummy half, and Lindsay Smith. The edge forwards are Isaiah Papali'i, Liam Martin and Isaiah Yeo at number 13. The bench, Jack Cogger, Billy Phillips, Scott Sorensen at 16, and 17, Luke Garner. 18, Isaac Targo, yet to get a crack in first grade so far of the season, and Freddie Lussick, who I thought did a tremendous job replacing Mitch Kenny last week. That's starting 9 for the Penrith Panthers over the Melbourne Storm. The reserves are 20, Siano Fanau, Kalani Going, the 28-year-old lock forward that they've bought from the New Zealand Warriors, and Jack Cole, the replacement half in that 22 jersey. The next game, Friday, 6 p.m. between the Manly Sea Eagles and the St. George Illawarra Dragons. Let's go. Of course, before I start, the Bulldogs, of course, Stephen Crichton is out and expected to be ruled out for a month. So that's a big loss for the Bulldogs going into that game for the Penrith Panthers. Let's have a look at the way the Dragons line up. This will be Friday, 6 p.m. Friday night football. You'll catch this on KO Sports and Fox League at Wynn Stadium in Wollongong between the Dragons and the Manly Warringah Sea Eagles. Let's have a look at the Dragons lineup. At fullback, Tyrell Sloan, replacing the injured Clint Gutherson, expected to be ruled out for 6 to 8 weeks, apparently. On the wings, Christian Tuapolotu and Setu 2 comes back in for David Farley. Moses Sully and Valentine Holmes in the centres. Daniel Atkinson he's gone to the number 6, hasn't played number 6 since he was at Cronulla, and 7, Kyle Flanagan. So they've switched those two around. Emre Gula, Damien Cook and Toby Couchman at front row. The second row is Luciano Leilua, Jaden Sewer and Hamish Stewart in the number 13 jersey. The bench is Jacob Little, Blake Laurie, Jacob Halangahu and Josh Kerr in the 17. The 18 and 19, Hame Sele and Cade Reid, the young half. If you remember week 1 of the preseason challenge back in early February, it was the Dragons and the Newcastle Knights, and Cade Reid had an amazing game in the halves for the Dragons. So I've got no doubt that he'll make his NRL debut within the coming weeks if there is an injury to the halves. The reserves are Matthew Fingai, Locko Jr. Pacifica Tonga at 21. What a player he is. They need to get him into the starting 13, in my opinion, at some stage through the year. And of course, Lincoln King Tongia, who played 5'8 last week for the Dragons. That's how they line up. Let's have a look at Manly. At fullback, Tom Trbojevic. The two wingers, Jason Saab and Lehigh Hopewadi. The centres are Tolu Kohler and Ruben Garrick. The halves are Luke Brooks and Jamal Fogarty. Up front, Taniela Paseka, Brandon Wakeham, who I actually thought did a good job against the Dolphins last week. Kobe Hetherington at number 10 at prop. The edge forwards, Haumole Olakwatu, Ben Trbojevic and Jake Trbojevic at 13. The benches, Jake Simpkin, Corey Waddell, Ethan Bullimore, Simeone Leifai, and Paul Bryan, Clayton Falolo are the 18 and 19. The reserves are Joey Walsh, Josh Felaherty and Nathan Brown. Josh Felaherty, of course, making his NRL debut last week against the Dolphins and did a decent job, mind you, in defence especially. For the Broncos and the Cowboys, this is the following game, Friday, 8 p.m. at Suncorp Stadium. Brisbane line up like this. No Reece Walsh, expected to be ruled out for 6 to 8 weeks. Could be ruled out of Origin 1. So with a fractured cheekbone, you see Jesse Arthurs. Good to see him start, of course, for the Broncos in a very, very long time. He starts for them he started last week on the wing, but now he starts at fullback. Great to see him. Really good player, Jesse Arthurs. For me, he was one of the best players in that 2023 grand final loss for the Brisbane Broncos. For me, he starts at fullback. The two wingers, Josiah Karapani and Dean Mariner. The centers, Tony Staggs and Gemmet Shibasaki comes in back and retains that number 4 position. The halves, Ezra Mam and Adam Reynolds. Up front, Corey Jensen, Corey Pakes and Payne Haas. Brendan Piakura, Jordan Ricky at 12 and 13. Patrick Carrigan on the bench. Blake Moser, Xavier Willison, Ben Tolti and Alblix Tawa. The young half, Thomas Duffy that they bought from the Cowboys as the 18. And Hayes Perham, the young fullback that they bought from Canterbury a couple of years ago in the 19. The reserves, Jaden Hunt at 20, 21, Va'a Semu and Josh Rogers is the 22. And of course, Adam Reynolds named in that game. No, Ben Hunt, he will be out for up to a couple of months. 2 huge losses in Reece Walsh and Ben Hunt. Adam Reynolds has been named. I doubt he'll play. We'll expect to see young Thomas Duffy get that number 7 jersey if Adam Reynolds is ruled out before kick-off. Let's have a look at the Cowboys. 3 wins on the trot for the team under pressure at the start of the year. At fullback, Scott Drinkwater. He was in fine form against the St. George Illawarra Dragons last week. The 2 wingers, Braden Burns and Murray Talangi. The centres, Jackson Purdue and Thomas Chester. The halves, Jake Clifford and Tom Dearden. Up front, Cohen Hess, Reid Marnie and Jason Tomalolo. The edge forwards are Helam Lukey, Kai O'Donnell and Ruben Cotter as co-captain in that 13 jersey for the Cowboys. On the bench is Sonny Luke, Griffin Neem, Thomas McKaylee and 17 Matt Lodge. 18 is Zach Laybutt, 19 Mason Barber. The reserves are Harrison Edwards, 21 Caden Lars and Robert Derby in the 22. Now the Rabbitohs and the Raiders. This is the first game on Super Saturday this week at Optus Stadium in Perth. Let's have a look at how the Rabbitohs line up as they've started season 2026 with 3 wins, 1 loss and a bye. Jai Gray at fullback. The 2 wingers are Alex Johnston and Campbell Graham. And the centres are Latrell Mitchell and Jack White. And the halves, Cody Walker and Jamie Humphreys. Up front, Tavita Totolo, Brandon Smith and Keon Kalamatangi. The second rowers are David Fafita, Talis Duncan and Cameron Murray at lock forward and captain of the side. Peter Mamazoulis, who in my opinion has been really impressive off the bench this year so far for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. Lachlan Hupner, Sean Kepi, Liam LeBlanc. 18 is Bronson Garlick. 19 is Jaden Sullivan. The reserves, Edward Cossie at 20, 21 Thomas Fletcher, the young back rower there, and 22 Liam Siegwalt. Of course, the talking point there is Brandon Smith coming back straight into that starting lineup in that 9 jersey. Hasn't played since the Charity Shield. Actually, no, it was against Manly was his last game in that preseason challenge final round of the trials. Good to see him get his first go in South's colours in the NRL this year in season 2026. Let's have a look at the way in which the Raiders line up in this game. At fullback, KO Weeks, the 2 wingers, Savelio Tamale and Jed Stewart comes on for Xavier Savage, who unfortunately has a long-term injury. He looked really in a lot of pain last week. Unfortunate to see. Simi Sasangi in the 3, 4, Sebastian Chris, the halves, of course, Ethan Strange and Ethan Sanders. Josh Papali'i up front in that 8 jersey, 9 Tom Starling and 10 Joseph Tarpany. The edge forwards, Hudson Young, Noah Martin and Corey Horsburgh, the redhead. The big ginger man at 13 on the bench, Jaden Brayley, Zach Hoskin, Atta Mariota, Morgan Smithies, Dan Laurie and Joseph Roddy in the 19. The reserves line up such as this with Owen Paddy at 20, 21 Matthew Tomoko yet to get a crack in the first grade squad so far in season 2026, and young fullback Chevy Stewart, who in my opinion could find an opportunity elsewhere. I doubt he's going to find one at fullback at the Canberra Raiders long-term, with a long-term extension recently to KO Weeks. Now, the following game is, of course, at the same stadium in Perth, back-to-back games like we saw last year. I think it was Cowboys and Rabbitohs and Cronulla and Manly in round 6 last year on that Super Saturday afternoon. So let's have a look at the Sharks and the Roosters. They line up such as this. The Sharks, 5:30 Optus Stadium in Perth. The Sharks are slight favourites in this game. At fullback, Will Kennedy, the 2 wingers, Sione Katoa and Sam Stone Street. Mawene Hiroti in for the injured Jesse Ramian. So Hirotti's a good player. I'm pretty sure he signed with the Gold Coast Titans for 2027 and beyond. KL Iro in the 4 jersey, the halves Braden Trindle and Nico Hines. Up front, Adam Fanua, Blake Brayley and 10 Toby Rudolph, who I thought was absolutely sensational in rounds 5 last week. Billy Burns and Teague Wilton are the edge forwards with Jesse Colhoun, the number 13. The bench, Britton Nakora, Sifa Talakai, Oregon Kafusi and 17 Tom Hazelton. Hohepa Puru, Tuku Hao Tapuha in the 19, the reserves are Jaden Beryl, the dummy half, Riley Jones at 21 and 22, Chris Failea. The Roosters line up off a bye. They've had the week off. James Tedesco at fullback, the 2 wingers, Daniel Tupou and Mark Nwanga-Nitawatsi. Now the centres are Hugo Savala in the 3 jersey to replace the injured Billy Smith as he got injured in that Manly game a couple of weeks ago, and the forwards, Robert Toyer. The halves, Daly Cherry Evans in that 6 jersey alongside his halfback Sam Walker in the 7. Up front is Nafahu White, Reece Robson and Lindsay Collins. The edge forwards are Angus Crichton, Siwa Wong and Victor Radley. On the bench is Connor Watson, Spencer Lenu, Nat Butcher and Celesi Fiketti. 18 is Cody Ramsey and Tommy Talau in the 19. I thought he was ruled out with a possible ACL at the start of the year. Great to see him named in the 19 jersey. Unbelievable to see. It's actually Easter miracle sort of stuff there. The reserves are Benaya Ialua, 21 Egan Butcher and 22 Blake Steep. All right, the final game of Super Saturday is between the Melbourne Storm and the New Zealand Warriors. You'll catch that on Fox League on 7:35 p.m. at Amy Park in Melbourne. Let's have a look at the Melbourne Storm coming off 3 losses. I think they're going to get a win in this game. Su'Fa'alago at fullback, the 2 wingers, Will Warbrick and Moses Leo. Jack Howarth and Nick Meaney in the centres alongside Cameron Munster at the 6 and 7, Jerome Hughes, the 2020 premiership winning halves combination. Stefano Utukaramanu at 8, 19, Harry Grant and Josh King at 10. Joe Chen has been sensational in that 11 jersey. Cooper Clark comes in as the 12 and Trent Loiero as the 13 on the bench. Tyron Wishart, Alec McDonald, Jack Hetherington, and David Mawali in the 17. 18, Lazarus Vailepu, Manaya Watari as the 19, and the reserves line up such as this. The 20, Preston Conn, 21, Hugo Peel, and 22, Trent Talau. The Warriors, Tane Tuapiki at fullback, Dylan Watani Zalesniak, the number 2, with Roger Tuivasa Shek as the 5. The 2 wingers, Shans Nickel Clockstadt and Adam Pompey. The halves, Chanel Harris Tavita and Tanner Boyd in the 7. The 8 is James Fisher Harris, 9 Wade Egan and 10 Jackson Ford. Laka Halasima at 11, 12 Jacob Laban and 13 Aaron Clark. The bench is Sam Healy, 15 Murata Niokore, Demetrik Varmaga at 16 and 17 Tanner Stowers Smith, 18 Eddie Irema Tuivava, Alofi Khan Pereira. The reserves are Morgan Gannon, 22 Luke Hansen, and 23 Ali Leatua. The Eels and the Titans are the first game of Sunday afternoon football at Combank Stadium. The Parramatta Eels, of course, Isaiah Iongi ruled out to expected 8 weeks, unfortunately. So let's go through the lineup for Parramatta coming off loss against the West Tigers. Of course, Bailey Simonson out for the year. Joash Papali at fullback. The 2 wingers, Araz Nanva comes in that number 2 jersey alongside Josh Adokar. The Fox, yeah, brah, number 5 jersey. The centres, Will Penasini and Brian Kelly in the 4 jersey. Now, Ronald Volkman comes in for the injured, what's his name? Sorry, bear with me. You guys know it. I'll come back to it. Ronald Volkman at 6, 7, Mitchell Moses, 8, Jack Williams, 9, Riley Smith, Junior Paulo, Kelma Talangi, Katoni Katonga, and of course Dylan Walker at the 13. 14, Talon De Silva, 15, Charlie Geimer, 16, Sam Tuivati, Luca Moretti at 18, Jack DeBellin and Tincum Brown. The reserves, Muhammad Alamedi, Josiah Funalutu, and Lorenzo Talatani. Why have I got a mind blank? I've got his face, the 5'8". He's going to Brisbane next year. Well, let me know in the comments. I've got his face in my name. I can't get his... Braithen Astor's his manager. I can't... Anyway, he's injured. Mind blank there. Keanu Kinney at fullback. The 2 wingers, Ciatelli, Faimani at the 2 and 5, Philip Sammy. Jojo Fafita and AJ Brimson in the centres. Lachlan Ilias and Jaden Campbell in the halves. Clace Haas, Sam Verrills at dummy half and Tino at 10. 11, Arama Howe. What a revelation he has been for the Gold Coast Titans. Only 21 years old and dominating as an edge forward at the Gold Coast Titans to start his NRL career. The number 12 is Beau Firma. And the lock forward, of course, is Chris Randall off the bench. Curtis Moran, Cooper Bye, Mo Fodawaker, Oliver Pascoe, 18 Jalen de Groot and 19 Jet Liu. The reserves are Zane Harrison, 21 Adam Christensen, and 22 is Jensen Tamapanoa. And that's going to be a good game. Parramatta versus the Gold Coast Titans. Don't expect the Gold Coast Titans. Don't expect Parramatta to just come out and win this. Like, the Titans could definitely win this game. It's going to be a really interesting game of Sunday afternoon football. And of course, the 4:05 p.m. game between the West Tigers and the Newcastle Knights. You can catch this on Channel 9's Wide World of Sports, Fox League, Channel 502 on Foxtel, and of course KO Sports. Let's go through the Tigers first, At fullback, Jareen Buller. The two wingers, Falatino Tavana and Jarrell Skelton in the number 5. Of course, Luke Lauali'i is suspended for that. Would you call it a tackle? Well, I'm going to call it an accident against Bailey Simonson. The centres, Sunia Taruva and Messi Makassini. What a gun he is in the centre position. The halves, Jock Madden at 6 and 7. Adam Dewey up front. Terrell May at Coruscant, the 9 and the 10 is Fanua Pole. The second rowers are Samuel Alafanu, Kai Pearce-Paul and Alex Twell in the 13. The bench is Latu Fanu, Sione Fanu in the 15. Royce Hunt in the 16 and the 17 is Alex Seyfarth. Tristan Hope in the 18 and 19 is Patrick Herbert. Bunty Afoa and the number 20. 21 is Tony Suka and 22 is Charlie Murray. The Knights at fullback, Fletcher Hunt. The two wingers, Dominique Young and Greg Marziu. The centres are Dan Gagai and Wilson DeCourcy. The halves, Fletcher Sharp and Sandon Smith. Up front, Jacob Saifiti, Phoenix Crossland and Trey Mooney. The second rowers are Dylan Lucas, Jermaine McEwen and Matthew Croker. The benches, Harrison Graham, Tyson Frizzell at 15, 16 Pasami Solo and 17 Thomas Khan. 18 Tyson Gamble, 19 Cody Hopwood. The reserves are Francis Manu Lealua, 21 Elijah Moana and James Schiller, the young outside back in the 22 jersey. That is how the Knights line up against the West Tigers. Sunday afternoon football. That is round 6 and the team lists for this upcoming round. Enjoy your round 6. The next edition of the Rugby League Forecast will be, of course, my round 6 tips and prediction. Now, round 1, I got 5 out of 8. Round 2, I got 6 out of 8. Round 3, I got 4 out of 8. Round 4, I got 1 out of 8. That's fucking the worst. That's the worst I've had since 2016. That's so bad. But then round 5, we got 6 out of 8. So just ignore round 4. And we're doing okay. We're doing okay. Put a line through round 4 and move on. I want to say a big congratulations to my mate Josh Russo in the tipping. Who got 8 out of 8 on the weekend. He is absolutely flying and dominating. Luckily, I don't take that tipping comp too seriously, so I don't let it affect me in any way, shape or form. Just a few tears on Sunday night, but no, congratulations to him. Fantastic. And Josh, mate, tell Matty I say good day, and I hope you guys are both well. Thank you for tuning in to the podcast. Really appreciate you guys listening in. And if you enjoy what you're listening to, guys, if you're new to the podcast, please follow me on Spotify. That is Rugby League Forecast Podcast on Spotify, and please subscribe to the YouTube channel. All right, I can't wait tomorrow to do the tips and predictions for round 6. Fuck, it's hard tipping in the NRL this time of the year, but it really is the greatest game of all rugby league. Thank you very much for watching and listening for today's edition, and we will see you for the next episode. Cheers.